And thank you much. So quantitative methods, really the bones of the quantitative methodology is really, 6 broad things, okay? First of all, you need to have your research questions. Okay, what am I seeking to examine here, right? Who are the participants or observations? What are the instruments? What are the procedures to administer those instruments to those participants? What's the data analysis plan? How am I going to analyze that data? Okay, to examine those questions. And then what's the sample size? There's also, some people have limitations, some people have ethical considerations, but these for quant, certainly this is some of the bones of it. I'm going to focus in on a couple of things that are really, I see as problems for folks, which is really research questions stated in statistical language. What does that mean? And the data analysis plan. What test do I choose to, which test do I choose to examine those questions given the data that I have? So we'll talk about that. Participants, that's kind of related to sample size too. Most dissertations or theses, these kinds of things, it's really a convenient sample. We're not talking about generalizing to things. People are not funded researchers. We're going to kind of get whoever we can get. Instruments, certainly you want to not be making up your own instrument. Why? Dissertations and even other research, most of the time you have specific questions that you want to examine, but you're not into the instrument validation. That's not your research, okay? Once you start making up your own research questions, okay, in quant, once you start making them up, a normal question is going to be, how do you know your instrument's reliable? How do you know that it's valid? And so forth. Particularly the validity question is a problem. I mean, you can assess reliability, but validity is going to be an issue. What you want to do, in a vast majority of the cases, you want to find reliable, valid, existing, underline, existing instruments. That's really, really important. And when you discuss instruments in your methodology, you're going to say, whoever, the MLQ, the multi-faceted, leadership questionnaire. Here is, Bass and whoever else made it, and here's all the reliability and validity. That tells your committee, the IRB, the journals, that you're using instruments that have those qualities. Because if you do analysis on instruments that do not have reliability and validity, and you don't find things, or you find things, they don't know, is it the truth of the world or is it the problem with the instrument? So the short answer is use valid and reliable instruments. By the way, you should all be using some kind of large language model, chat or whatever, and asking chat, I'm interested in looking at emotional intelligence. What are the 3 instruments that are out there? I'm interested in leadership. What are the instruments that are out there? I'm looking at CPR knowledge. What are the instruments that are out there? So there's tons of things out there. So get those, okay? Don't even mess around, for your sake. Don't even mess around with making up your own. In quant. Okay. The procedure, basically that gets to the kind of the whole thing gets to the cookbook part of this thing, which is you have your methodology, okay, right here. You give it to your next door neighbor who knows nothing about your study, and they can replicate your study. That's science, replicability, okay? So you have questions, and your neighbor knows where to get your participants, how many participants to get, what instruments you're using, how you're going to administer those instruments to those participants, and that procedure and they can conduct your study. That's the whole idea of it. If they cannot replicate your study, you will not pass go, you will not collect $200, you will not pass your committee, okay? You will not pass IRB, okay? And any journals reviewing your research are going to have lots of questions and kick it back. They have to have a clear sense of what you're doing, okay? They need to be able to say in their brain, in their imagination, this is how that study was done. Every time they have to stop to say, how did they do that? How are they creating those composite scores? Who's being assessed here? Every time they do that, it's going to cost you 2 weeks of your life. Okay. All right. And I see it all the time. All right. Committee feedback says, whose perceptions are you assessing? Are you providing their perceptions or are you getting their perceptions? Okay. Obviously, we're getting the perceptions from the participants, but you have to articulate that clearly. All right. So that has to be very cookbookish. Okay. Very clear in the steps, just like a cookbook, right? You have to get the ingredients. You have to figure out how to mix it. You have to figure out how long to bake it. That's how you get a consistent product every time. That has to happen. You start messing around and say, well, it's a pinch of this. Okay, they don't know. You have to say exactly what's happening here. Same with the data plan. It's the messiest part of the whole methodology. If I get a nickel for every time somebody had a data plan question, okay? So people don't know how to select the appropriate analysis. And I'm going to share that with you in this next 5 to 10 minutes here, okay? It's a critical thing. You conduct the research, and the question is, how do you go from that data to examining those questions? That data plan answers that question. Okay. Data plans. Basically, there's just two simple parts, okay? One is, what are the research questions in statistical language? And you'll see it's not highfalutin statistical language. It's things like, are there differences? Are there relationships? Does one predict this thing? Okay. So, but you have to have that part of the question. Okay. Those questions are tying to, how are you tying together these variables? Okay. All right. Income is predicting program satisfaction. Okay. Right, or whatever. So you have variables, and that statistical language is showing how you're tying them together. Okay. Income is associated with program satisfaction. That's a different way of saying that. So that's statistical language, and we'll talk about that. But you have to think about clearly how to articulate that research question. Because in the reader's mind, okay, that's foreshadowing the analysis. That's one part of it. Research questions in statistical language. The other part is levels of measurement. We have to understand what that is, okay? Some of these analyses are very specific to different types of levels of measurement. Briefly, I'm talking about nominal, ordinal, and scale levels of measurement, okay? And I'll talk about that. So the data plan is comprised of two pieces of information. What are my variables? How are they supposedly connected? How are these things measured? That's basically what's happening here. Okay. Statistical language. So, most common, A relates to B. Are there differences on, okay, and I'll go through my little example here, okay? Are there differences on A by B? Does A predicted by B? So let's just keep this SES in program satisfaction, okay? So I can say under the relating thing, okay? Does SES relate to program satisfaction? Does your socioeconomic status relate to program satisfaction? All right, it's possible. We're going to test it, okay? You can also say, are there differences? Are there differences on some program satisfaction based on your SES, low, medium, high, or some darn thing, okay? You can also say, are there, can SES predict program satisfaction? Okay. So we have the same variables, program satisfaction and SES, okay? But we're asking different questions about them. And the way they were asking those questions by using relating or differences or predicted speaks to different analyses, okay? One part of the pie. What's the other part of the pie? The other part of the pie is what is the levels of measurements of these variables, okay? How am I measuring SES? How am I measuring program satisfaction? And the truth is that you can measure them in all ways. You can measure them in nominal, you can measure them in ordinal, you can measure them in scale. So let's just take that for a moment. Well, let me maybe go down to the next one. Okay, levels of measurement. Basic 3 types. You should have this visual in your brain, okay? Nominal is Latin for name only. They're just labels. Male, female. There's no hierarchy, there's no order. Male, female, Republican, Democrat, okay? All right. My example. All right. So just labels, okay? And in that is a Venn diagram, is that kind of visual. Ordinal is the next level, which is they have labels like small, medium, gigantic, Coca-Cola, whatever they're selling these days at 7-Eleven. So they have both labels. Small is a label, medium is a label, big gulp or whatever is a label, but they're also ordered, okay? And the symbol is that little ordered kind of bar graph there, okay? So ordinal level data. Continuous or scale or interval or ratio, I'm all using synonymously, okay? The continuous level has the icon of a ruler because it has labels, okay? 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch. It has order, 1 inch is before 2 inch, 2 inch before 3 inch, but it also has equal spacing, so to speak, okay? That is, okay, the distance between 1 inch and 2 inch is the same distance between 2 and 3 inches, is the same distance between 56 inches and 57 inches, all right? So you have more granular and more information with continuous. That's all you need to know about levels of measurement. There's 3 of them: nominal, name only; ordinal, ordered; scale, like a ruler, okay? That's it. Okay. So once we have these levels of measurement and we have this different language, okay, we put those together, okay, and that drives different analyses. This is not exhaustive for the relating differences and the relating and prediction, but it covers quite a bit, okay? I mean, maybe, 10 to 15 tests or something. So if I have a question, does A relate to B? Okay. Does SES relate to program satisfaction? Nominal and nominal. I can use SES low high, and I can use program satisfaction unsatisfied, satisfied. Okay. 2 nominal level variables. They don't have to be 2 levels. Okay. But in my case, there are. Relating satisfaction, satisfied, unsatisfied with high and low income, okay? I can do a chi-square. So when you have nominal level variables on both sides, and does SES relate to program satisfaction? Measuring these variables as nominal level variables, I'm in chi-square land. Ditto if I have nominal and ordinal, okay? Nominal, unsatisfied, satisfied; SES, low, moderate, high. I have some order to that, still in chi-square land. Now, once I go to ordinal, okay, for example, satisfaction, low, moderate, high satisfaction, okay, program. SES, low, middle, high, okay, 2 ordinal level variables, and I'm going to relate those two. Spearman correlation is the way to do that. Ordinal and scale, same darn thing. So I can have SES, low, middle, high, and I can have an actual number of program satisfaction. Give me a number from 1 to 100. 100, incredibly silly, happy, pushing each other in the bushes, satisfied. 1 or 0, totally disgusted by the program. So you can have a ordinal and scale, you're still in Spearman land. When you get to scale and scale, you might have a total number, satisfaction 1 to 100 or 1 to 7, and you can have SES. Where do you rank yourself from let's just say your actual income? Okay, so actual income scale and 1 to 7 scale. Okay, Pearson correlation. So there's a few ways of chopping when you're relating two variables. They also have associated A and B, or A associated with B. All right. So that's how you get to some analyses based on relating. Differences. Okay. Well, there are differences on satisfaction, program satisfaction by SES. Okay, that's a question. All right. So what's important here is the by. So by SES, okay, the independent variable. So let's just take a few cases here. So I have 3 levels of measurement cases. I have an actual, okay, satisfaction score from 1 to 7 by some nominal high versus low income, okay, for example. When that income or SES is just 2 levels, high versus low, I'm doing a t-test. Happens to be an independent samples t-test. When that independent variable has 3 or more levels, okay, all right, so I'm looking at actual, again, program satisfaction by SES, low, moderate, high. Now I'm into ANOVA land, okay, so it's a one-way ANOVA. Okay. You can also have a scale by an ordinal, same thing, and then an ordinal by nominal, right? So I'm looking at program satisfaction, low, moderate, high satisfaction, by nominal, whether it has 2 levels or 3 levels, okay? We're doing a Mann-Whitney or a Kruskal-Wallis. This is when things are paired, slightly different story. So the take-home message here is that phraseology differences and levels of measurement are driving different tests. The last kind of example with respect to the relating two variables, in this case, predicting one variable from another, okay, and levels of measurement, it all depends upon the outcome variable. So, so here I have nominal, ordinal, and scale predicted by any one of these, nominal, ordinal, scale. So if your outcome variable, or it's called the criterion variable or dependent variable, okay, is binary, I want to predict live, die, success, non-success, okay, I'm in binary logistic regression. If your outcome variable is nominal with more than 3 levels, okay, I want to predict Republican, Democrat, Independent, okay, all right, by any kind of variables, I'm in multinomial regression. If I'm predicting an ordinal level variable, low, moderate, high satisfaction and with the program by any variable, I'm in ordinal regression. And if I'm predicting a scale level variable, okay, satisfaction from 1 to 7 or 1 to 100, some number, right? By any number of variables, I'm doing a linear or multiple linear regression. By the way, the linear regression just means I have one predictor. Multiple linear regression, I have more than 2 or more predictors. So the key point with this regression business is that what is the dependent or outcome variable? And that is driving the test. The outcome variable is binary nominal. The outcome variable is 3 or more levels of nominal. The outcome variable is ordinal, or the outcome variable is scale, either with one predictor or many predictors. All right, I think I just want to take a stop there for a second, get some questions, and I think I want to hop into the tool too. Okay. Let's see what we can do here. So let me move this over here. Sorry. Okay. So this is intellective statistics. Okay. We have a decision tree here, and guess what you need to know? Well, we need to know a few other some dependent or independent variable, but you can see that the variables are really, excuse me, what I was calling language. You have differences, prediction, or relationships. Okay, and I can say I want to predict an outcome. I got to make this a little bit bigger. Sorry. I want to predict an outcome, and what's important with that prediction language, okay, is the outcome variable. What do you want to predict? Scale. You're doing a linear regression. If you were doing ordinal, you're doing ordinal, okay, ordinal logistic. So just to know that you can play around with the decision tree. You can get a 7-day free trial. Maybe Melissa, those who actually showed up for today, everyone's going to get a recording, but maybe let them play with it. Would be okay by me. And can't break these things. And just look to see, hey, if I answer these questions, can I get to the right analysis there? Okay. All righty. What else do I want to say with this? I guess I want to just exemplify some of these things too. How are we doing on time? Seems like that's okay. And let me just throw in a few variables here. Okay, and then all right. How many folks do we have here? Can we test folks today? Maybe. You know what? Let's just have some fun here. Okay. So let me just edit one more thing here. This should be set. Okay. Let's test everybody's either everybody's skill or my teaching of the skill. Okay. Despite what these say, this may be right, this may be wrong. What level of measurement is this program satisfaction? Just satisfied or unsatisfied?
And you could enter that in the chat. If you can enter your answers in the chat.
Or just think it out loud, okay? Or think it inside. You can chat it. Because if you're getting the wrong answer, then I need to go back. Okay. So I guess it would be useful to see what you have here. All right. So satisfied, unsatisfied, just two labels. Okay. It seems like they could be ordered. Okay. But all right, that would be nominal. Okay. So just two labels. Now here we have unsatisfied, okay, moderately satisfied, and very satisfied. What level of measurement do you think that is? Okay. If you said that it was ordinal, you would be correct. Okay, because that is an order. Okay. All right, program satisfaction. All right, if we just have numbers with equal intervals, what would that be? All right, if you said scale, you'd be correct. All right, And I did a similar thing over here with socioeconomic, nominal, just naming things high, low. Okay. SES, when you have low, moderate, high, okay, that's labeled and ordered, okay, or just a straight up number. Okay, here comes the real tests. All right, so the real test, just remember we have a program satisfaction nominal ordinal scale, and we have SES nominal ordinal scale. Okay, so here's the test for you all. So if I was conducting, I wanted to see if there was a if A related to B. Okay, if satisfaction relates to SES, what test should I use? We have any responses in here, Melissa?
No one has answered yet.
No, fine. So, okay. So it was kind of a trick question because I didn't give you the information about what levels of measurement. So if we were looking to relate these things with a Pearson correlation, they would both have to be scale. And by the way, to look at the relationship between two scale variables, we're using a Pearson correlation. And you can see the tool comes out and it has the Pearson correlation. And guess what? There's a significant positive correlation between those two. I could also have had both of those as a as nominal, right? And if they're both nominal, does A relate to B, or does satisfaction relate to SES? And they're both nominal. I can do a chi-square test, and I can select my program sat nominal and my SES nominal. Okay. And you can see the chi-squared has assumptions. And you can see that there's a significant relationship between program sat satisfied versus unsatisfied and SES low versus high, okay? So you can kind of get a flavor. You can start playing with things around verbiage, levels of measurement, and test. That's the data plan story, okay? Do we have any questions about this? All right. I do want to put a quick plug-in for once you figure out your what analysis, once you do your analyses, we do have an AI summary which actually kicks off it kicks off a discussion section. So share the word, streamlining results and discussion. And to give you a flavor of that, which I will, this is the kind of summary you can get from that AI summary in this thing. Interpretation, theoretical implications, all from your results. So limitations, future research conclusions, and references. So this is all coming out of the AI summary. So the methodology is helping you determine what analysis, based on my research questions and level of measurement, this tool can help you conduct those analyses very quickly, and this can actually start kicking off your discussion. Okay. Any thoughts about that prior to me jumping into the qualitative? And if I confuse you in any way, I'd like to know that. Or if you're getting it, I'd like to know that. So throw some feedback into the Q&A or into the Q&A or the chat, Melissa.
Questions, I would put them in the Q&A. If you just have a quick question about something that you're going over, you can put it in the chat, but most of them Q&A, and then we'll leave them to be answered when you stop.
When we stop. Okay, got it. All right, so I'm going to continue on to the qualitative. All right. So from the current slide. All righty. Okay, let's get to qualitative methods. Qualitative methods is a different animal. So let's get there. So what are some of these bones of a qualitative methodology, both for your dissertation or thesis, both for your faculty research, and all the above for IRB, okay? You should have research questions. Typically, those questions are driving the semi-structured interview most of the times. Contrary to the quantitative, we really want reliable, valid questions. Okay. Here, I think there's a lot more flexibility here. So it wouldn't hurt to have some other research that's examined kind of the same domain, but I think you can really come up with those questions. I would come up with the questions based on the research questions, and then I would vet them with some expert. This is covering the content, okay? And I've even seen, hey, and piloted it out, okay? Try it with a few people to make sure that they understand your question, okay? Are they comprehending that, okay? So questions, have them, can help inform the semi-structured interview. Participants, obviously the participants should have some experience, okay, or rich experience, I say, in that topic. If you're assessing, parents' perceptions of the school, they should have kids in school there, okay? So you want to have that. Instruments, procedures, typically it's that semi-structured interview, okay? Most of the time it's done on Zoom these days or some other platform. And but you want to share with the reader how you're doing that, okay? Okay, how are you doing that? So I'm going to do it via Zoom. How is the consent working? How are you informing them about confidentiality, which is down below? Okay, what does that whole procedure look like? And just like in the quantitative, okay, that cookbook needs to go from your hand to your neighbor's hand, and they can conduct your qualitative study. They know who you're getting, how you recruited them, okay, how many there are, and what you're going to be asking them. I would also include in that procedure approximately how long this thing is going. Is it a 10-minute thing or an hour thing? People, your participants are going to want to know that. Okay, so let them know that. So okay, data plans. Typically with qualitative, the data plans are. I see just a ton of phenomenological kinds of studies where we're really looking to excerpt. Okay, what's some of the important narrative from the participants? How are they combining together to create different codes? Okay, and codes and code descriptions. And further, how are those codes being collapsed to be thematized? Okay. Sample size determination. If you faculty will tell you, and I'm sure other sophisticated researchers will tell you that you want to keep getting data until there's no new information coming out. I think for faculty, that's probably great, okay? Where there's more time and so forth. I don't personally find that really reasonable for lots of students cases, okay? Where it's tough to get participants, where they're paying tuition and I don't have enough people and now I'm into another semester of tuition. So I just kind of ethically, I feel as though there should be a little relaxed nature there. That's my bias, admittedly. But I think if you're funded, if you have time, do that. I think, that 10 to 15 is probably a sweet spot. of participants. But when I see people, students in particular, with 20 or 25 people at an hour long, all of which have to be transcribed and banged through and read through and read through. I'm like, it just costs you another few months of your life, and maybe that's okay. But, in the spirit of what is the research process, okay? Again, typically these graduate dissertations are not earth-shattering. Some are, but most are not, most are not. It's about the process of discovering knowledge and critically thinking through things and using that information and talking about that. So anyway, I think saturation is probably the politically correct answer, and it's probably the correct answer. Okay, when we say it's probably the correct answer, and I think that there's limitations to students, be it in quant or qual, about what's observable. Obviously, during COVID, things were totally relaxed, right? I mean, you couldn't get nobody was out of the house, so you couldn't get folks. So, obviously that points at their circumstances where flexibility should be permitted. So to faculty, flexibility to your students. To students, you know, you picked your committee. Okay. All right. Presumably you picked your committee. Ethical considerations, more so than in the quant. I mean, always confidentiality and anonymity, it's always important. But especially when you're getting very personal narratives from folks, okay, you have to be extra careful with that. You have to get consent with everybody. Confidentiality, often you're interviewing people that you either know or have access to, you're in person with them or via Zoom. You just want to protect their information, okay? You want to tell IRB how that information is being stored, and participant information. I mean, what can I say? Do the best you can there. Data gets transmitted. Okay. No one's probably looking for your data. I mean, it seems like medical records and HIPAA stuff, or other kinds of confidential things like that. Um, maybe extra careful, but for IRB, you're gonna have to want to speak to that, and you should do it. You shouldn't just willy-nilly keep it around, but anonymize it as soon as possible. Even with the quant, occasionally you see kind of the names coming through, and you don't want that. I don't want that. No one else really wants that. Not that anybody cares about these individual persons per se, but to the extent that you can kind of mitigate any of that flow of personal information, the better. Practical considerations. This is more to the, and I'll share this with you in a second, the kind of the AI qualitative, how do we do analysis here? How you're putting together that data makes a big difference, whether you're putting it by research question or interview question or by interviewee, is some considerations here. That's more into the tool, and I'll get to that. You should be prioritizing quality over quantity, okay, particularly of your themes. You want good themes. You want things that are really out there in the world, okay? And you don't want a crazy number of these things. I mean, I had 22 themes in my dissertation, but it took a year to collect that data. A year. Okay, I got the process halfway through the year, but they wanted more and more. So I think a manageable number of themes, whatever that is. I mean, I guess it depends on the number of research questions, but I guess my metric on that, and again, it's my bias, is when a reader walks away from that results chapter, they kind of have in their brain what those themes were. Okay. And there has to be a manageable number to do that. Okay. I want to just poke at the qualitative tool real quick, just to show you after you go through the methodology and after you collect data, that here's an example of simple business for interviews, but just to share with you what's happening these days, that inductive coding is here, okay? Or AI inductive coding, finding important excerpts, putting them together, and then creating some code name and code description for them, okay? This would have been very helpful to me 25 years ago, okay? So, but nevertheless, it's here now. This is an AI version of getting 24 codes and 62 excerpts. So just to know that technology is here and ready, and here are the different codes and excerpts based on, 30 seconds, okay? Here's the code name, code description, and the excerpts associated with it. You can, of course, code manually or have a little assistance there. You can also thematize. How many themes are represented, can represent those codes? Here they have 12. Again, you may want to moderate that a little bit. Okay. All right. So, and in very short order, you have a theme, AI-driven marketing evolution. You have some codes that go with it, a theme name, theme description, codes, and excerpts. Very quickly, no more blank paper. You can then even tie those themes, okay, to your research questions. So here's one of my research questions, okay, one of 3 research questions, and those 3 themes go with it. Okay, so you can see the research question here. Okay, here's the theme, first theme, and why, or the rationale for that theme tying to that research question. Okay. So let me open up to questions here around quant, qual, methodology, conducting analyses. Okay, so the first one is, can we talk about literature review tool? Oh, you're speaking my language. We have a literature review tool coming out that will take any number of articles, 5, 25, 125. It will figure out which ones go together. It will synthesize that cluster. It will provide those individual descriptions of each article, and it has a table of contents and a reference section that goes with it. So, and it's pretty darn comprehensive. Some of the initial work we've done with 100 articles, that lit review draft is about 150 pages. So it's a very, very comprehensive thing. But from 2,000 pages to, or at least reading 2,000 pages once, not 3 times, to 150-page lit review is a huge time saver in it. So that's what's happening with lit review. And really, it will be available in the next month or 2. So we're getting there as quickly as we can. I appreciate the question. Okay. 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 So someone was asking about the decision tree. So I would just say, I think the quick thing to do is just to, well, Melissa, can we get that individual a free trial without, typically get a 7-day free trial, but you have to put in your credit card.
Everyone can get a 7-day free trial. If you want to just show the decision tree again quickly.
Yep.
And then if there's any specific question about the decision tree, feel free to enter that in. We can address it in more detail.
And by the way, I'll make the shameless plug for consulting with me, that in a half an hour, we can typically half hour, an hour, we can typically get a whole data plan, power analysis, and so forth put together. So I've done a few of these things. I think we examine differences between groups, group differences. I have one outcome variable. Okay, let's just say it's my program satisfaction. I have no covariates to speak about. I think I probably don't have any covariate and go back again. Okay, so differences between groups. The differences on program satisfaction from 1 to 100 by SES. Okay, so I only have one dependent variable, which is my program satisfaction. Covariates, it's a different conversation. We can talk about that at some point. I have just one independent variable. Do I have more than one independent variable? No, I just have one independent variable. Okay. So, and here's that level business, right? So if it's 2 levels or more, okay, right? If it's 2 levels, I'm going to wind up here in a t-test. If it's more than 2 levels, I'm going to wind up with an ANOVAs. Okay. So I'll just say, does it have more than 2 levels? No. Okay. So I'm doing a t-test, independent sample t-test. That man Whitney's if the assumptions are violated. So, but that's another conversation. But for methodology and for IRB, when you have one dependent variable and you're looking at it by 2 levels independent variable, like high and low SES, we're doing independent sample t-test. Okay. Greetings. I'm getting ready to collect the data. Congratulations. I know that's a process, William, so good for you. Good for you. I'm wondering about the appropriate test of my project. Okay. The research is guided by mixed methodology using the MLQ, so we can talk about that. So MLQ, okay, and to assess leadership and organizational culture to evaluate. The study drew from nonprofit leaders, blah, blah, blah. Okay. What's missing in your question is your question. Okay. What is the research question?
William, do you want to raise your hand and maybe
Sure.
we can get into it and we can unmute you?
Yeah, so let's do that. So we have 2 things, okay, which is great. We have the MLQ, we have leadership on one hand, okay, and then we have culture on the other. All right. William, are you there? Okay. So let's just go back to where we were. Okay. All right. Over here, this could be edit. This could be based on your question. All right. So this could be org culture.
Yeah, I just placed the questions on there.
Hey, okay. Good afternoon. Okay, so what is the question in there? Let me see if I can get to it. Okay, got it.
What's the relationship
Okay, got it.
between?
Okay.
You
So
got the questions?
I got you. All right. So what's the relationship between leadership approaches and org culture in South Florida nonprofit? Okay. So what's the relationship? That sounds like, let me get back here. That sounds like, let me just get here. So what's the relationship? We're here. Does org culture relate to leadership? And I believe org culture and leadership are both scaled here, correct? Right, William?
Yes.
Yep. So the simplest thing to do is a Pearson correlation. I'm correlating this scale variable, org culture, with this scale variable, MLQ or transformational leadership. Straight, simple.
Okay.
How do leadership approaches influence employee retention? Okay. So influence, prediction, accounted for, role in regression land. Okay. So what leadership approaches, okay, B, okay, contribute to organizational climate, okay? A. So does leadership predict organizational culture? Does leadership account for variability in organizational culture? Does leadership influence organizational culture? So they're both scale. The outcome variable is scale. Which one of these should we use when the outcome variable is scale? That is org culture or climate rather. Pardon me.
Multiple linear.
Yes, sir. Good job. Right on. Okay, you got that. All right. And then what key leadership behaviors contribute to favorable organizational climate? So that's when you say contribute, that almost sounds like, hey, you know what? I want to have several of these MLQ subscales predicting org climate. Is that true?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
And your third question about leadership behaviors, you're referring to the subscales of MLQ? What do you mean
Yes.
by leadership behaviors?
Yes.
Okay, so contribute to organizational climate. I think you're still right here with org climate here. And then you have your several, your leadership predictive variables here. So I think you're still in there,
Okay.
right?
So still multiple.
Multiple, right. And in the second question, you're predicting retention. How is retention measured? I'm sorry.
Yeah, nonprofits are based on volunteers.
No. That's the setting. With
Uh,
respect to influence employee retention, I'm going to go back to research question 2. Okay. Over here, so what is the level of measurement of retention? Like,
Yeah, there's a high turnover in most nonprofit because they are volunteer based.
okay, that's not my question either.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna get your focus here.
Okay.
What is the when I can measure retention in a few ways. I can measure retention. Am I going to leave in 6 months? Yes, no. That's one way to measure retention. Ordinal, how likely are you? Not likely, neutral, very likely. Or
Okay.
on a scale, 10 being I am out of here, 1 I'm sticking around until I die. Okay, so there's different ways of measuring, okay, retention.
Sure.
How are you measuring retention? That's my question.
Um, I think scale.
Okay, so you need to know that,
Okay.
right? Because the whole part of this thing is that it's not only the question, it's a good question, but you need to know the level of measurement of those variables, right? And I just described that I can measure employee retention in 3 ways.
Time.
There's no right, well, again, retention, are you going to leave in 6 months? Yes, no. How likely are you to leave? And on a scale from 1 to 10, how likely are you to leave? You just need to know there's no right answer there.
Okay.
You need to know an answer, okay? You need to know a way that you're going to measure it, okay?
Not yet.
You need to,
So
right, but that's fine. But think about it, and you need to articulate that in I would even say in the in the instrument section. Oh, I'm going to measure retention by asking a question. You're going to leave in 6 months? Yes, no. Okay, and
okay.
I have a nominal level variable. Okay.
Sure.
So once you articulate that, how these things are being measured, okay, again, that question, which is a fine question, okay, the influence, okay, does leadership influence retention? But you need to know the level of measurement. Once you
Okay.
have that, if it was I was going to leave, am I going to leave in 6 months? Then I'm doing a binary logistic regression because I have my outcome is a binary out of nominal variable. Am I going to leave? Yes, no. Okay. And then you can use one or more leadership scales to predict that. And it's a very good question. I mean, yeah, I hope that helps.
Mhm.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you
My
very much.
pleasure. My pleasure. Good luck, William.
Thanks much.
Yep. Vicky asks, is there a minimum number of themes there should be? Are 2 or 3 enough? I don't know how much data you have, but my short answer is it seems a little skinny. So, I think if you had like one research question and only a couple of interviews and a few themes emerge, okay. But if you have 10 interviews, you have several research questions, I think to me, 7 to 15 is the right sweet spot for themes there. Just my own biased, uninformed. Okay, I'm uninformed about your research, but that's my thoughts about it. Other questions, if any?
If you go to the chat, there's some pre-submitted.
Oh, chat. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna move through these and then we'll wrap up. Blah blah. Okay. How do methodology expectations differ between traditional dissertations and capstone projects and program-based EDD programs? You know what? Zero. There should be zero difference. Even if you're in an EDD program, you should be doing the same methodology should be applying, whether you're publishing, whether you're in a PhD, a PsyD, an EDD, okay, same methodology should apply. That's a good question. They shouldn't be watering down the stringency in which those methodologies are clearly articulated, okay, based on that. What guidance would you offer EDS, I don't know if that's a master's degree, students who are beginning to conceptualize a future problem of practice or research focus? Most people know what the problems are. Problems are easy to come across, okay? Everyone sees something, or you read in one of your articles and said, how about this? Don't think about doing some revolutionary thing, okay? You don't have to stop sharing. You don't I think it's okay. You don't have to do some revolutionary thing here, okay? You just need a little twist on something that's been done, either a different population or different time that you're doing it, or things of that sort. So don't get hung up on, trying to rock the world. Just rock your graduation, okay? All right. Are there core tools, skills? Beginning to explore how to build competence in qual mix. Well, listen, let me say something about that. I would only pick, unless your committee says otherwise, and some do, I would only pick one methodology, okay? Quant or qual, whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever the committee feels comfortable with. I would not be doing mixed methods and doing twice the work there. For faculty, I'd probably do it as 2 separate studies, okay? Maybe some qualitative to get some kind of thoughts or themes, and then doing the quant, or vice versa, doing some quant study and then some qual to dig deeper. But for students, I wouldn't do it. How should students determine whether quant or qual? Should do it on your comfort level. I mean, some people are really good with numbers, some people are better with language, and but it might be dictated not by your comfort, but by your faculty's comfort. That's just the way life is. What are the most common pitfalls doctoral students encounter in writing methodology? Certainly for the quant is that data plan that we talked about. For qual, I think people get hung up on the questions themselves, and I think helping the reader to validate that, yes, you've checked it out with somebody else, and perhaps you've piloted those questions. Those are the kind of quant and qual difficulties that I see. Okay. Would you suggest that I move forward with a mixed method? I never recommend a mixed method. I just think you're spending extra time. The point is to go through a research process, come up with questions, figure out the significance of this study, understand what the literature said about it, develop a methodology to examine those questions or twists of the questions, do the analysis, and come up with some conclusions and recommendations and so forth. No, I mean, the only mixed method I would do is when somebody demands that you do it. Okay. But other than that, if you've taken a class in each, great. But I think I'm just kind of keep moving with one. All right, it's top of the hour. I think we'll wrap it up right here. Melissa will send everyone the recordings. Folks can have trials of these tools. We'll get a list of other webinars forthcoming. Maybe a discussion section webinar forthcoming. That would be new. And then, and certainly a lit review webinar when that comes. And anyway, feel free to email questions. I guess I should put up some contact information here. Hang on here. Let me get it back to the, let me just do this from the current slide. So contact information. If you want to consult with me, feel free to use that QR code. Samantha can help students.
Can you share your screen?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay. My apologies. Okay. So, if you want to consult with me, you can scan that QR code. Samantha could help with students, Ashley with faculty, demos, trials, courseware, Melissa for other general questions. Some of the websites names, you could take a picture of this with your phone if you'd like, but you'll get the recording. But if you want to take a quick picture so you have this kind of information ready at hand, great. And with that, I look forward to seeing you all next time. And thanks for hanging in there. And I hope you learned something. All right, bye all.